1865, Oklahoma Territory. Charlotte Dalton stepped down from the wagon into freezing wind and stared at the wrong ranch. The driver dumped her trunk in the snow. She'd paid him the last of her money to bring her here from the rail station, clutching the worn letter with directions. This was supposed to be Samuel Garrett's ranch. The letter said so clearly, but the man standing on the porch, jaw tight with confusion, was definitely not Samuel Garrett. He was younger, handsome in a rough way, with dark brown hair showing beneath his hat and gray eyes that looked wary. His heavy coat hung open despite the cold, and he held a rifle loosely in one hand. Charlotte's heart sank. She'd traveled 3 weeks to get here. This was supposed to be her new life. Her escape from Boston and her father's debts, and the men who wanted to marry her for her medical skills without caring about her at all. The cowboy finally spoke. His voice was rough, cautious. "Can I help you, miss? I'm Charlotte Dalton." She tried to keep her voice steady despite the cold seeping through her dress. "I'm here to marry Samuel Garrett. This is his ranch, isn't it?" His expression shifted. Something dark crossed his face. "This is Garrett's ranch. Was anyway." Her stomach dropped. "Was? Garrett's dead. 3 weeks now. Outlaws got him." The world tilted. Charlotte grabbed the porch railing to steady herself. Dead. Samuel Garrett was dead. The man she'd agreed to marry, who'd sent her train fare and directions and promised her a home and safety. "I'm sorry." The cowboy's voice gentled slightly. "You didn't know?" "No." Her voice came out barely a whisper. She'd left everything behind, burned every bridge. And now, she was stranded in the middle of Oklahoma Territory in winter, with nowhere to go. He shifted uncomfortably. "I'm Owen Reid. I worked for Garrett. Been trying to keep the ranch going since he died. But I'll be moving on come spring." Charlotte's mind raced. She had no money. No way back to Boston even if she wanted to go there, which she didn't. Her father's gambling debts had destroyed any life she might have had. And the men who'd wanted to marry her in Boston only wanted a free doctor and housekeeper. "I'm a doctor," she heard herself say. "Well, I ran my father's practice after he died. I can treat injuries, deliver babies, handle most illnesses." Owen's gray eyes sharpened with interest. "You're a real doctor?" "As real as a woman can be without formal schooling. My father trained me from childhood. I've been running his practice for 2 years." He studied her for a long moment. The wind howled around them. Charlotte shivered, pulling her shawl tighter. She could see him thinking, weighing options. "Nearest town is Red Fork, 15 miles east," he finally said. "No doctor there. Closest one is in Fort Smith, 2 days' ride. Folks around here could use someone with medical knowledge." Hope flickered in Charlotte's chest. "I could help people here. Winter's settling in hard. Roads will be impassable soon. You wouldn't make it back to civilization until spring thaw, even if you had money for passage." Charlotte lifted her chin. "I don't have money for passage. I spent everything I had getting here." Owen's expression softened slightly. He looked at her trunk in the snow, then back at her face. She could see him making a decision. "There's a cabin on the south edge of the property. Small, but sound. Used to be for the ranch foreman. You could stay there through winter. Help folks who need doctoring. In exchange, I'll make sure you have firewood and supplies." Relief flooded through her. You'd do that? Garrett would have wanted someone to help his neighbors. And you need somewhere to stay. Seems practical. He paused. But I want to be clear. I'm not looking for a wife. Come spring, I'm leaving. This arrangement is temporary. Just neighbors helping each other through winter. Charlotte nodded quickly. I understand. I'm not looking for a husband either. I just need somewhere safe to practice medicine. That wasn't entirely true. She'd agreed to marry Samuel Garrett because she'd needed escape and security. But Owen Reid's wariness told her he had his own reasons for being alone. She wouldn't push. Then we have an agreement. Owen finally set down his rifle and stepped off the porch. He lifted her trunk easily despite its weight. I'll show you the cabin. Get you settled before dark. Charlotte followed him across the snowy yard. The ranch was small, but well kept. She could see a barn, a chicken coop, a small corral with 2 horses. Smoke rose from the main house chimney. The foreman's cabin sat about 100 yards from the main house. It was tiny, just one room with a fireplace, but the roof looked solid and the door hung straight. Owen kicked it open and carried her trunk inside. I'll get a fire started. He moved to the fireplace with practiced efficiency. There's a bed, table, couple chairs. Not much else, but it's warm once the fire gets going. Charlotte watched him work. His movements were precise, economical. He had the look of a man who'd been taking care of himself for a long time. There was something haunted in his eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. The fire caught. Warmth began filling the small space. Owen stood, brushing off his hands. I'll bring supplies in the morning. Food, lamp oil, extra blankets. If you need anything before then, main house is that way. He pointed. Don't be shy about asking. Thank you. Charlotte meant it deeply. You didn't have to help me. Yes, I did. Owen's voice was quiet. Leaving a woman stranded in winter isn't something I could live with. He started toward the door, then paused. One more thing. There's been trouble lately. Outlaws, claim jumpers. They killed Garrett because he wouldn't sell them the land. They might come back. Keep your door locked at night. Fear prickled down Charlotte's spine. Do you think they'll come back? I think they want this land. And I think they won't stop until they get it, or I stop them. His gray eyes met hers. I won't let them hurt you. But you need to be careful. He left before she could respond. Charlotte watched through the small window as he walked back toward the main house, shoulders hunched against the wind. She was alone in a tiny cabin in Oklahoma Territory, with winter closing in and outlaws threatening the land. But she had a roof over her head and a purpose. She could help people here, practice medicine the way she'd always wanted, without men telling her a woman couldn't be a real doctor. Charlotte unpacked her medical bag first. Bandages, laudanum, willow bark tea, needles and thread for stitching. Everything she'd brought from Boston. Then she unpacked her few clothes and the worn medical books her father had left her. By the time darkness fell, she'd made the cabin as much a home as possible. The fire crackled warmly. Her bed was made with the blankets Owen had left. Her medical supplies were organized on the small shelf. She sat at the table and wrote in her journal by lamplight. Today, she'd arrived at the wrong ranch and met a man who didn't want a wife. Somehow, that felt more honest than the arranged marriage she'd planned. Owen Reid was running from something. She could see it in his eyes. And she was running too. Maybe that's why he'd helped her. Because he understood. Charlotte closed her journal and looked around the small cabin. This wasn't the life she'd planned. But maybe it was the life she needed. Outside, wind howled across the prairie. Inside, the fire burned warm. And for the first time in months, Charlotte felt something like hope. The next morning arrived gray and cold. Charlotte woke to frost on the inside of her window and her breath misting in the air. She built up the fire quickly, grateful for the stack of wood Owen had left. She was measuring coffee when she heard boots on the porch. Owen appeared in the doorway with a crate of supplies. He set it on her table without meeting her eyes. Eggs, bacon, bread, coffee, beans, potatoes. He listed the contents. Should last you a week or two. I'll bring more when you need it. Thank you. Charlotte poured 2 cups of coffee and offered him one. Will you stay a moment? He hesitated, then took the cup. His hands were chapped from cold and work. He held the warm mug like it was precious. How did Samuel Garrett die? Charlotte asked quietly. Owen's jaw tightened. They came at night. 3 men. Said they'd pay him double what the land was worth if he'd sell. He refused. They shot him and rode off. Did you see them? I was in town getting supplies. Came back and found him. Owen's voice went rough. He was still alive when I got there. Lasted about an hour. Made me promise I'd keep the ranch going until spring. Said his mail-order bride was coming and she'd need help. Charlotte's throat tightened. He was thinking of me when he died. He was a good man. Wanted to give you a better life than whatever you were running from. Owen's gray eyes found hers. What were you running from? She could have lied. Instead, she chose honesty. My father died 6 months ago and left enormous gambling debts. The men who held those debts offered to forgive them if I'd marry one of them. But they didn't want a wife. They wanted a free doctor and someone to keep house. So you found another man to marry instead. Samuel's letters were kind. He wanted a companion, not a servant. That seemed better than what I was leaving. Charlotte wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. What about you? What are you running from? Owen's expression shuddered. Nothing I can talk about. Fair enough. She wouldn't push. They barely knew each other. What needs doing around here? I can help. You're a doctor, not a ranch hand. I'm also a person with 2 working hands and nowhere else to be. Put me to work. Something that might have been respect flickered in Owen's eyes. Can you handle chickens? I can learn. He almost smiled. Come on then. I'll show you how to collect eggs without getting pecked. They spent the morning working together. Owen showed Charlotte the chickens, the vegetable cellar, the barn, the 2 horses. He explained the daily routine. Feed the animals, collect eggs, check the fences, bring in firewood. Charlotte learned quickly. By noon, she was collecting eggs with confidence and had helped Owen mend a broken fence post. Her hands were cold and her back ached, but it felt good to be useful. They ate lunch in the main house. Owen had made stew from dried beef and vegetables. It was simple, but filling. They ate mostly in silence, but it was comfortable silence. I heard you were the best doctor in Boston, Owen said suddenly. Garrett showed me your letters. You've delivered over 100 babies. treated infections that other doctors gave up on, set broken bones, even performed surgery. Charlotte felt heat rise in her face. My father taught me well, and I've always had steady hands. Why did you agree to marry a stranger and move out here? Because in Boston, I wasn't allowed to practice medicine on my own. Women can't be licensed as doctors. I could only work as my father's assistant. After he died, the medical board tried to shut down the practice. The only way I could keep working was to marry someone who'd let me continue. She met his eyes. Samuel's letters said he respected women who had skills and ambitions. That was more than anyone in Boston offered. Owen was quiet for a moment. My mother wanted to be a teacher, but married women couldn't teach in her town. So she gave up her dream to raise children. She always said it was worth it, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. It was the most personal thing he'd shared. Charlotte felt the weight of it. You understand, then, why I came here. I understand running from a life that doesn't fit. Owen stood and gathered their empty bowls. I also understand that sometimes the thing you're running from catches up. Before Charlotte could ask what he meant, the sound of horses approaching made Owen freeze. His hand went to the rifle by the door. Get back! His voice was sharp, commanding. Charlotte moved behind him. Through the window, she saw 3 riders approaching. They wore heavy coats and sat their horses with the confidence of men who expected to get their way. Owen opened the door and stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. Charlotte stayed in the doorway, close enough to see and hear, but not exposed. The lead rider was a big man with a thick black beard and cruel eyes. He grinned when he saw Owen. Well now, if it isn't the hired hand. Still pretending this is your land? It's not my land, Owen said evenly, but I'm taking care of it. And you're not welcome here, Kincaid. Thaddeus Kincaid. Charlotte recognized the name. Owen had mentioned him last night. The man who'd killed Samuel Garrett. We gave Garrett a fair offer. Kincaid's voice was deceptively pleasant. He chose poorly. Now we're giving you the same offer. Sell us the land and ride away with your pockets full. Or stay and end up like your boss. The land isn't mine to sell. Garrett's dead. No family, no heirs. Come spring, this place will be up for auction. We're just offering you a chance to profit before then. My answer is no. Kincaid's smile faded. You're making a mistake, cowboy. That's my choice to make. Kincaid's eyes shifted past Owen and found Charlotte in the doorway. His expression changed, became predatory. Well now, looks like you've got yourself some company. Pretty thing like that must get lonely out here. Owen's voice went cold. You look at her again, and I'll put a bullet between your eyes. Touchy. Kincaid laughed, but there was no humor in it. We'll be back, and next time, we won't ask so nice. The 3 riders turned and rode away. Charlotte watched them disappear over the rise before she let out the breath she'd been holding. Owen lowered his rifle slowly. That's the man who killed Garrett. I gathered. Charlotte's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists. What does he want with the land? Word is, there's gold in the hills north of here. He wants to stake a claim before others find out. Garrett's ranch is the best access point. Owen turned to look at her. I told you there was danger. That wasn't an exaggeration. I understand. Charlotte's voice was steadier than she felt. What do we do? We? Owen's eyebrows rose. There's no we. This isn't your fight. I'm here. That makes it my fight too. Charlotte lifted her chin. And I'm not running. I just got here. Something shifted in Owen's expression. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. You're stubborn. I'm practical. If Kincaid wants this land, he won't leave either of us alone. We're stronger together than apart. Owen studied her for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. All right, but we do things my way. You stay out of sight when they come around. You keep your cabin locked at night. And you tell me immediately if you see anything suspicious. Agreed. Charlotte paused. Do you know how to shoot? I was a sniper in the war. Good. Can you teach me? Owen looked surprised. You want to learn to shoot? If dangerous men are coming around, I want to be able to defend myself. Charlotte met his eyes. I have steady hands and good eyesight. I can learn. For the first time since they'd met, Owen smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger and less haunted. All right, Doc. I'll teach you to shoot. The rest of the afternoon passed in tense calm. Owen showed Charlotte how to load and fire his spare revolver. She was clumsy at first, but by sunset she could hit the fence post he'd set up as a target more often than not. You're a natural, Owen admitted. Most people flinch when they pull the trigger. You don't. I've performed surgery on conscious patients. I'm used to doing difficult things that need steady hands. They cleaned the guns together as the sun set. Charlotte found herself acutely aware of Owen beside her, the way his hands moved with practiced confidence, the line of his jaw beneath the stubble, the gray eyes that seemed to see more than she wanted them to. She pushed the thoughts away. Owen had been clear. He was leaving in spring. This was temporary. She needed to remember that. That night, Charlotte lay in her bed, listening to wind howl around the cabin. She thought about Thaddeus Kincaid's cruel eyes, about Samuel Garrett dying because he wouldn't sell his land, about Owen Reid, who stayed to honor a dead man's promise despite the danger. And she thought about the way Owen had stepped between her and Kincaid without hesitation, the way he'd threatened violence to protect her, the way teaching her to shoot, he'd stood close behind her, his hands guiding hers, and her heart had beat faster for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Charlotte pulled her blanket higher. This was dangerous thinking. She couldn't afford to develop feelings for a man who'd made it clear he was leaving. But her heart, apparently, wasn't listening to logic. The next week passed in a strange rhythm. Charlotte woke early, collected eggs, helped Owen with ranch work. In the afternoons, she studied her medical books and organized her supplies. In the evenings, Owen taught her to shoot. They were careful with each other, polite, professional. But something was building between them. Charlotte felt it in the moments their hands touched passing tools, in the way Owen's eyes lingered on her face when he thought she wasn't looking, in the way her heart jumped when she heard his boots on her porch. On the 8th day, a rider came from Red Fork. His wife was in labor and having trouble. Could the lady doctor come? Charlotte grabbed her medical bag. Owen saddled both horses without being asked. I'm coming with you, he said when she started to protest. Kincaid's men might be watching the roads. They rode to Red Fork together, The town was small, barely a dozen buildings clustered around a muddy main street. The man led them to a small house where his wife labored. Charlotte examined the woman quickly. The baby was breech. She'd have to turn it. "This will hurt," she told the woman gently. "But I've done this many times. Trust me." Owen waited outside with the husband. An hour later, Charlotte emerged with a squalling baby girl wrapped in clean cloth. The mother was exhausted, but alive. "You saved them both," the husband said, tears in his eyes. "How can we repay you?" "No payment needed." Charlotte was exhausted. "Just send word if anyone else needs help." They rode back to the ranch in gathering darkness. Snow began to fall. Owen rode close beside her, watchful and protective. "You were amazing today," he said quietly. "That woman and baby would have died without you." Charlotte felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you. You said you weren't a real doctor because you didn't have formal schooling. But what I saw today was real as it gets." She looked at him. In the dim light, his face was all angles and shadows. "You were in the war. You've seen death. Too much of it. Is that what you're running from?" Owen was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. "I was a sniper. Good at it. Maybe too good. By the end, I wasn't even thinking about the men I killed. They were just targets. Then the war ended, and I had to figure out who I was when I wasn't killing people." Charlotte's throat tightened. "You're a good man, Owen. You don't know what I've done. I know you stayed to honor a dead man's promise. I know you protected me from Kincaid. I know you're teaching me to shoot and keeping me safe. That's who you are now. Whatever you did in the war, it doesn't define you." Owen looked at her. Snow fell around them. His gray eyes were full of something she couldn't name. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. You get to choose who you are, Owen. Every day, you choose." They rode the rest of the way in silence. But something had shifted between them. An understanding. A connection deeper than neighborly cooperation. When they reached the ranch, Owen helped her down from her horse. His hands stayed on her waist a moment longer than necessary. Charlotte looked up at him. Their faces were inches apart. "Charlotte," he said softly, then stopped, as if he didn't know what to say next. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it too." He let her go abruptly and stepped back. "This is a mistake." "Why?" She said Nord or supposed decree, one space, sulhaced around her, and mentalizing the story, whether or not her him. Their rest place were a lost whiles white, and then tired. Kon let driending a tentikiter. I'll fell mighted then, all the quine played or spoons the twice. Because I'm leaving in spring. Because you deserve better than a man who's killed more people than he can count. Because getting involved with me will only hurt you. Charlotte wanted to argue, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Not fear of Kincaid or danger. Fear of caring about someone. Fear of being hurt. "All right," she said quietly. "But Owen, for what it's worth, I think you're wrong. I think you're exactly the kind of man I could fall in love with." She walked to her cabin before he could respond. Inside, she leaned against the closed door and tried to calm her racing heart. She'd said it. She'd admitted the truth out loud. and from the look on Owen's face, he felt the same way. But he was too afraid to act on it. And Charlotte didn't know if she had the courage to wait for him to overcome that fear. The winter days grew colder. Word spread about the lady doctor at Garrett's ranch. People came with injuries, illnesses, difficult births. Charlotte treated them all, taking payment in the form of food, supplies, firewood, whatever they could offer. Owen helped her without being asked. He rode with her to distant homesteads. He carried her medical bag. He waited outside while she worked, keeping watch for trouble. They were careful not to touch, careful not to let conversations go too deep. But the tension between them grew. Charlotte caught herself watching him, the way he moved, the rare smile that transformed his face, the gentleness in his calloused hands when he helped her down from her horse, the quiet competence in everything he did. She was falling in love with him, had probably been falling since the moment he'd agreed to help her, when he could have easily sent her away. And she was almost certain he felt the same. She saw it in the way his eyes followed her, in the protective way he stood close when strangers came around, in the way he found excuses to visit her cabin, in the way his voice softened when he said her name. But he never acted on it, never crossed the careful line they'd drawn between them. 2 weeks before Christmas, a blizzard hit. Snow fell for 3 days straight. Charlotte and Owen were trapped, unable to venture beyond the barn. They spent the time in the main house, where the fireplace was larger and the walls better insulated. Owen cooked. Charlotte read aloud from her medical books. They played cards. They talked about everything except the feelings growing between them. On the third night, the wind howled so fiercely the whole house shook. Charlotte sat by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, watching flames dance. Owen sat across from her, whittling a piece of wood. His hands moved with practiced ease, carving something she couldn't yet identify. "Tell me about Boston," he said suddenly. Charlotte considered her words. It was loud and crowded and full of people who thought they knew better than I did what my life should be. But it had good things too. Libraries, theaters, my father's practice. Do you miss it? I miss my father. I miss the freedom to practice medicine without hiding. But no, I don't miss Boston itself. She paused. Do you miss having a home? I haven't had a real home since before the war. Just places I stayed for a while before moving on. Why do you keep moving? Owen was quiet, his knife stilled against the wood. Because staying means getting attached, and getting attached means eventually losing people. I lost too many people in the war. It's easier to stay alone. Charlotte's heart ached for him. That's not living, Owen. That's just surviving. Sometimes surviving is enough. Is it? She leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a man who's exhausted from running. His gray eyes found hers. And you look like a woman who's done running. I am. Charlotte held his gaze. I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of hiding who I am. Tired of living half a life because I'm scared of being hurt. I came here to build something real, to practice medicine openly, to have a home, with a man you'd never met. I know, it was desperate and foolish, but it was also brave. I took a chance on something better, and you got me instead. There was bitterness in his voice. A man who can't offer you anything permanent. You've offered me safety, respect, partnership, and protection. That's more than most men offer women. Owen set down his knife and the half-carved wood. He stood and paced to the window, staring out at the blizzard. You don't understand. If I let myself care about you, if I let myself want this, I'll start believing I can have it. And then something will happen. Kincaid will come back, or the past will catch up, or you'll realize I'm not worth the risk. And losing you would break something in me that's barely holding together as it is. Charlotte stood and crossed to him. She placed her hand on his arm. He flinched, but didn't pull away. Owen, look at me. He turned. His face was anguished. I'm not asking you for forever, Charlotte said softly. I'm not asking you for promises you can't keep. I'm just asking you to stop running long enough to see what this could be. To give us a chance. Charlotte. Her name came out rough. If I touch you now, I won't be able to let go. Then don't let go. The dam broke. Owen's hands came up to frame her face, and he kissed her like a drowning man finding air. Charlotte wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with everything she'd been holding inside. It was desperate and hungry and full of weeks of denied longing. His hand slid into her hair, scattering the pins that held her braid. Her fingers clutched his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Owen pressed his forehead to hers. I'm terrified, he whispered. So am I. Charlotte's hands trembled against his chest. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe and alone. He kissed her again, softer this time, tender and full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes held something she'd never seen before. Hope. Stay with me tonight, she said. Just hold me. We don't have to figure out the rest right now. Owen nodded. They lay down together on the rug in front of the fire, wrapped in blankets. He held her close, his arms strong and protective around her. Charlotte listened to his heartbeat and felt safer than she'd felt in years. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. Owen's arms tightened around her. I love you too. God help me, I love you too. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, the blizzard raging outside but warmth and safety inside. Charlotte woke to gray dawn light, and Owen watching her face. His expression was soft, vulnerable, in a way she'd never seen. Morning, he said quietly. Morning. She smiled. Any regrets? None. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. You? Not a single one. They lay there a while longer, neither wanting to move. Finally, practical needs won out. They needed to check on the animals, make breakfast, dig paths through the snow. But everything felt different now. The careful distance between them was gone. Owen touched her casually as they worked, his hand on her back as they walked to the barn, his fingers brushing hers when he handed her tools. Charlotte found herself smiling for no reason, found herself catching Owen watching her with heat in his eyes, found herself thinking about the future in a way she hadn't let herself before. They spent Christmas together. Owen carved her a small wooden box for her medical supplies. Charlotte knitted him a scarf from yarn she'd gotten in trade for medical services. They cooked a simple meal and sat by the fire, comfortable in each other's presence. This is the best Christmas I've had since before the war, Owen admitted. Mine too. Charlotte leaned against him. Thank you for letting me in. Thank you for being stubborn enough to break through my walls. January brought bitter cold but clear skies. Charlotte continued treating patients from the surrounding area. Owen continued managing the ranch. And at night, they came together. Sometimes in her cabin, sometimes in the main house, learning each other. Owen told her about the war, about the men he'd killed, about the nightmares that still haunted him. Charlotte listened without judgment, offering comfort and understanding. Charlotte told him about Boston, about watching her father gamble away everything they had, about the humiliation of being courted by men who only wanted her skills, not her heart, about the fear that she'd never be allowed to be fully herself. You can be yourself here, Owen said, holding her close. With me, you never have to hide. They were careful. They knew spring was coming. They knew Owen had said he was leaving, but neither spoke of it. They lived in the present, stealing happiness where they could find it. In early February, trouble came again. Charlotte was returning from treating a child with fever in Red Fork. Owen rode beside her, watchful as always. They were halfway home when 3 riders appeared on the ridge ahead. Kincaid and his men. Turn around, Owen said urgently. Ride back to town. Fast. I'm not leaving you. Charlotte, please. His voice was desperate. I can't fight them and protect you at the same time. The riders were coming closer. Charlotte saw Kincaid's cruel smile, saw the guns at their hips. She made a decision. The trees. We can lose them in the trees. Owen looked at her, then at the dense woods to their left. He nodded. Stay close. They spurred their horses into the trees. Behind them, shouts. Gunfire. Charlotte's heart pounded as they wove between trunks, snow flying up from their horses' hooves. A bullet whizzed past her head. Owen returned fire without slowing, his sniper skills evident even on horseback. They burst through the trees onto a frozen creek. Owen didn't hesitate. He guided his horse onto the ice. Charlotte followed. The ice groaned under the weight, but held. On the far side, they plunged back into trees. The sounds of pursuit faded. They rode for another hour before Owen finally slowed. Are you hurt? He turned to check her over, hands running over her arms, her back, searching for injury. I'm fine. Charlotte was shaking, adrenaline still coursing through her. Are you? Fine. He pulled her against him right there on horseback, holding her tight. God. Charlotte, when I heard that shot, I thought, I'm all right. We're both all right. But they weren't. They both knew it. Kincaid wouldn't stop, and next time, they might not be so lucky. They returned to the ranch by a circuitous route, making sure they weren't followed. That night, Owen moved Charlotte's things into the main house. You're not sleeping in that cabin alone anymore, he said. His voice left no room for argument. Kincaid saw us together. He'll use you to get to me. I need you where I can protect you. Charlotte didn't argue. She was scared too. She moved into the spare bedroom, though most nights she ended up in Owen's bed, needing the reassurance of his arms around her. They lived in tense watchfulness. Owen taught Charlotte more about shooting. They practiced until she could hit targets consistently, until loading and firing became second nature. You're better than most men I fought with, Owen told her. Good. Because I refused to be helpless. Days passed. A week. 2 weeks. No sign of Kincaid. But the threat hung over them like a storm cloud. In late February, a rider came from Fort Smith. He wore a marshal's badge and carried official papers. "I'm looking for Owen Reid," he said. Charlotte felt her stomach drop. Owen stepped onto the porch, face carefully neutral. "I'm Reid." The marshal studied him. "Got word you were here. There's a bounty on you from Texas. Wanted for desertion." Charlotte's breath caught. Desertion. Owen had deserted the army. "I didn't desert during the war," Owen said quietly. "I served my full term. After the war ended, they wanted me to stay on as a sniper, hunting down Confederate holdouts. I refused. Left without permission. Technically, they're right. I'm a deserter." The marshal sighed. "Look, son, the war's been over nearly 4 years. Most folks are trying to forget, not drag old soldiers back for court-martial. But the Army's got a long memory when it comes to men who walk away. Are you here to arrest me?" "That depends." The marshal looked at Charlotte, then back at Owen. "Word is, you've been taking care of this ranch, helping the lady doctor, keeping the peace. Folks around here speak well of you. I try to do right. Here's what I can offer. You come with me to Fort Smith. We'll straighten this out. You'll likely get a dishonorable discharge and a fine, but no prison time. Or you run and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." Owen was quiet. Charlotte could see him thinking, weighing options. "If I go with you, how long will it take? Week, maybe 2. Depends on how backed up the military courts are." Owen looked at Charlotte. She saw the question in his eyes. She nodded. He should go. He should face this and be free of it. "All right," Owen said. "I'll go. But I need 1 day to make arrangements. Make sure the ranch and the lady are protected while I'm gone." The marshal considered. "1 day. I'll camp in town. You come find me tomorrow morning. Or I come back with a posse. You have my word." The marshal rode away. Charlotte and Owen stood on the porch in silence. "You're really going?" she finally said. "I have to. I'm tired of running. You were right about that." Owen turned to her. "But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If Kincaid comes while I'm gone, you take one of the horses and ride to Fort Smith. Don't try to fight. Don't try to protect the ranch. Just run." "Owen, promise me, Charlotte. I can't go face this if I'm worried about you being here alone with that bastard lurking around." She wanted to argue, but she saw the fear in his eyes. Fear for her. "I promise." That night, they held each other close. Neither slept much. In the gray pre-dawn light, Owen packed his saddlebags. "I'll be back as soon as I can," he said. 2 weeks, at most. "I'll be here." Charlotte helped him saddle his horse. "Be safe." "You too." He kissed her, long and deep. "I love you, Charlotte Dalton. When I get back, we need to talk about the future. About spring. About whether I'm really leaving." Hope bloomed in Charlotte's chest. "I'd like that." She watched him ride away, her hand raised in farewell. He looked back twice before disappearing over the rise. Charlotte squared her shoulders and went to feed the chickens. She had patience to see, a ranch to maintain, and 2 weeks to get through. she could do this. She was stronger than she'd been when she arrived. Owen had taught her to shoot. She knew the land now. She had friends in Red Fork and the surrounding homesteads. She would be fine. The first 3 days passed uneventfully. Charlotte treated a broken arm, delivered a baby, and helped a farmer with an infected wound. She kept busy, trying not to count the hours until Owen would return. On the 4th night, she woke to the smell of smoke. Charlotte bolted upright. Through the window, she saw orange flames. The barn was on fire. She grabbed Owen's rifle and ran outside. The barn was fully engulfed. She could hear the horses screaming inside. Without thinking, Charlotte ran toward the flames. She had to get the horses out. She wrapped her shawl around her face and plunged through the door. Smoke choked her. Heat seared her skin. But she found the first horse's stall and threw it open. The terrified animal bolted past her to safety. She stumbled to the second stall. The smoke was thicker here. She couldn't see. Her lungs burned. But she found the latch and opened it. The second horse charged out. Charlotte turned to follow, but something slammed into her from behind. She fell hard, the rifle skittering away. "Going somewhere, Doc?" Thaddeus Kincaid loomed over her. His face was demonic in the firelight. 2 of his men flanked him. "The cowboy's not here to protect you now," Kincaid said. "We've been watching. Saw him leave with the marshal. Figure we got maybe a week before he comes back. Plenty of time to persuade you to convince him to sell when he returns." Charlotte tried to scramble away. Kincaid grabbed her arm and yanked her up. His fingers bit into her flesh. "Let me go." "Not a chance. You're coming with us. When your cowboy gets back and finds you gone, he'll do anything to get you back, including signing over this land." Terror clawed at Charlotte's throat. She thought of Owen's warning, thought of her promise to run. But she hadn't expected them to come at night. Hadn't expected the fire. She fought. Kicked. Scratched. Bit. Kincaid backhanded her across the face. Pain exploded through her skull. She tasted blood. "Put her on a horse," Kincaid ordered his men. "We're taking her to the canyon hideout." They dragged her toward their horses. Charlotte's mind raced. If they got her on that horse, she was lost. Owen wouldn't know where to look. Even if he came back immediately, it would be too late. She had one chance. As they lifted her toward the saddle, Charlotte went limp, making herself dead weight. The man holding her cursed and adjusted his grip. In that moment, Charlotte drove her elbow back into his throat. He dropped her, gasping. Charlotte hit the ground running. Behind her, shouts. Gunfire. A bullet kicked up snow beside her feet. She ran for the trees. If she could reach the woods, she had a chance. The darkness would hide her. She knew these woods now. She could lose them. Almost there. 10 more yards. Something hit her leg. She went down hard, pain shooting up her thigh. She'd been shot. Charlotte tried to crawl. Hands grabbed her, hauled her up. Kincaid's face filled her vision. "Stupid woman. You just made this harder on yourself." He threw her over his saddle like a sack of grain. Charlotte's leg screamed with pain. Blood soaked through her nightgown. They rode into the darkness. Charlotte tried to memorize the route, tried to stay conscious despite the pain and shock. But after an hour, everything started to blur together. They stopped in a narrow canyon. Kincaid's hideout was a crude camp with tents and a fire. He dumped Charlotte on the ground inside one of the tents. "Tie her up," he ordered, "and get something to stop that bleeding. She's no good to us dead." One of the men bound her hands and feet. Another wrapped her leg wound roughly. The bullet had gone through her calf, missing the bone but tearing muscle. Charlotte bit back screams as they worked. When they left, she was alone in the dark tent, bound and bleeding. The pain was excruciating. Her medical training told her she needed proper treatment or infection would set in. But there was nothing she could do. She was trapped. Hurt. Alone. Charlotte closed her eyes and thought of Owen. He would come for her. She had to believe that. She just had to survive until he did. The next day crawled by. Kincaid brought her water but no food. Her leg throbbed constantly. She could feel fever starting to build. On the second day, Kincaid came to the tent. "Your cowboy's back. One of my men saw him at the ranch. Found the burned barn and you gone. He's tracking us now." Charlotte's heart leaped. Owen was back. He was coming. "He'll kill you," she said, her voice hoarse. "He'll try. But I've got 6 men to his 1. And I've got you. He'll trade the land deed for your life. Then I'll kill you both and take the land anyway. You're a monster." Kincaid laughed. "I'm a businessman. This is just business." He left. Charlotte struggled against her bonds, but they were too tight. The fever was getting worse. She knew she had maybe 2 more days before infection took hold seriously. After that, even if Owen rescued her, she might not survive. She had to stay conscious, had to stay alert, had to be ready to help when Owen came. Because he would come. She knew it with absolute certainty. Owen Reid would move heaven and earth to find her. She just hoped he got there in time. Owen Reid returned to the ranch at dawn on the 5th day after leaving Charlotte. The military court had been surprisingly efficient. Dishonorable discharge, a fine, and a warning to stay out of trouble. He was free. He'd ridden hard through the night, eager to get back to Charlotte. Eager to tell her he'd decided to stay, to build a life with her, to make this ranch a real home. The smell of burned wood hit him first. Then he crested the rise and saw the blackened skeleton of the barn. Terror unlike anything he'd felt in the war seized his chest. He spurred his horse into a gallop. The main house was intact. He burst through the door, calling her name. "Charlotte! Charlotte!" Silence. The house was cold. The fire long dead. Her medical bag sat on the table. Her coat hung by the door. She hadn't left willingly. Owen forced himself to slow down, to think like a tracker. He searched the house, the grounds. Found signs of struggle near the burned barn. Blood in the snow. Lots of it. His vision went red. Kincaid. It had to be Kincaid. Owen found tracks. 3 horses, heading northeast toward the canyons. One set of tracks showed a horse carrying double weight. They had her. He checked his weapons, loaded his rifle and both revolvers, filled his pockets with ammunition, strapped his hunting knife to his belt. Then he mounted his horse and followed the trail. Owen tracked them for a full day, moving fast, but careful not to be spotted. His sniper training served him well. He could move silently, read the land, anticipate where they'd go. As darkness fell on the second day, he found their camp. A narrow canyon with tents clustered around a fire. 6 men. And somewhere, in those tents, Charlotte. Owen circled the camp, counting guards, noting positions. He had to do this smart. If he went in guns blazing, they'd kill Charlotte before he could reach her. He waited until deep night, until the guards grew careless, bored. Then he moved. The first guard never knew what hit him. Owen's knife was quick and silent. He dragged the body into the shadows. The second guard was sitting by the fire. Owen circled behind him, hand over his mouth, knife to his throat. The man struggled briefly, then went limp. 4 left. And Kincaid. Owen moved to the tents. Checked the first. Empty. Checked the second. Supplies. Third tent. There. Charlotte lay on the ground, hands and feet bound. Even in the darkness, he could see she was injured. Blood stained her nightgown. Her face was pale, slick with fever. Owen cut her bonds gently. Her eyes fluttered open. "Owen," she breathed. "I'm here. Can you walk?" "I don't know." "My leg." "I'll carry you. But we have to move now, before they realize I'm here." He lifted her carefully. She bit back a cry of pain. Owen's jaw clenched. Kincaid would pay for this. They made it 10 yards before someone shouted, "The prisoner's gone!" Owen ran. Behind him, chaos. Men scrambling for weapons. Kincaid bellowing orders. Gunfire erupted. Owen dodged between rocks. Charlotte clutched against his chest. A bullet whined past his ear. He reached his horse. Got Charlotte into the saddle. Mounted behind her. They galloped into the darkness, gunfire lighting up the night behind them. But Owen knew these canyons now. He'd scouted them. He led them through a narrow passage the outlaws couldn't follow on horseback. Out the other side. Onto open prairie. They rode hard for an hour before Owen was confident they'd lost pursuit. He slowed, checking behind them constantly. Charlotte slumped against him, barely conscious. Owen could feel the fever burning through her. He needed to get her somewhere safe. Somewhere he could treat her wound. Red Fork was closest, but Kincaid knew about Red Fork. Fort Smith was 2 days' ride. Too far. Then Owen remembered. The old line shack. 10 miles south. Built into the side of a hill. Hidden. Defensible. He'd found it weeks ago during a supply run. He turned his horse south. They reached the line shack as dawn broke. It was small, crude, but sound. Owen carried Charlotte inside and laid her on the rough bunk. He built a fire quickly, then turned to examine her leg. The wound was infected. Badly. The crude bandage was filthy. Charlotte was delirious with fever. Owen had seen enough war wounds to know what needed doing. He heated his knife in the fire. Poured whiskey over it. Poured more whiskey over the wound. Charlotte screamed when the alcohol hit. Owen held her down, hating himself, but knowing it had to be done. He cut away the infected tissue. Cleaned the wound as thoroughly as he could. Packed it with clean cloth, torn from his shirt. Bound it tight. Then, he stripped off her ruined nightgown and wrapped her in blankets. He bathed her face with cool water. made her drink water mixed with willow bark powder from her medical bag, which he'd grabbed from the ranch. For 2 days, Charlotte burned with fever. Owen never left her side. He kept the wound clean, kept her drinking water and willow bark tea, kept her warm, kept watch for Kincaid's men. On the 3rd day, the fever broke. Charlotte opened her eyes and saw him sitting beside the bunk, rifle across his lap, face haggard with exhaustion. "Owen," she whispered. He was at her side instantly. "Thank God. How do you feel?" "Like I was shot and kidnapped and rescued." She tried to smile. "But alive. Thanks to you." "I'm so sorry." Owen's voice cracked. "I should never have left you alone. I should have known." "You couldn't have known. This isn't your fault." Charlotte reached up to touch his face. "You came for me. You saved me. I'll always come for you." Owen captured her hand and pressed it to his lips. "Always, Charlotte. I love you. And I'm not leaving in spring. I'm not leaving ever, if you'll have me." Tears filled Charlotte's eyes. "You mean it?" "I went to Fort Smith and faced my past because you taught me that running doesn't work, that you have to choose who you want to be. And I choose to be the man who stays, the man who builds a life with you, the man who loves you for the rest of his days." "Yes," Charlotte breathed. "Yes, Owen. That's what I want too." He kissed her gently, carefully, mindful of her injuries. When he pulled back, his gray eyes were bright. "When you're healed, we'll go to Fort Smith. Make this official. Get married properly. Then we'll come back and rebuild that barn and figure out what to do about Kincaid. We'll face him together," Charlotte said firmly. "As partners." "As partners," Owen agreed. They stayed in the line shack for another week while Charlotte healed. Owen hunted for food. Charlotte rested and regained her strength. They talked about the future, about the ranch, about the medical practice Charlotte would build, about the life they'd create together. On the 8th day, Charlotte could walk with only a slight limp. The wound was healing cleanly. She was weak, but recovering. "Time to go home," Owen said. They rode slowly back to the ranch. As they crested the final rise, Charlotte gasped. The ranch yard was full of people, neighbors from Red Fork and the surrounding homesteads. They were rebuilding the barn. When they saw Owen and Charlotte approach, everyone stopped working. Then, someone started clapping. Others joined in. Soon, everyone was applauding. The Red Fork mayor stepped forward. "We heard what Kincaid did. Heard how you went after the doc and brought her home. We figured the least we could do is help rebuild." Owen was speechless. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she finally managed. "All of you. Thank you. You've helped all of us," a farmer said. "Delivered our babies, treated our sick, saved lives. This is us returning the favor." The community worked together for 3 more days. By the end, a new barn stood, where the old one had burned. Not as large, but solid and sound. On the 4th day, a rider came from Fort Smith, the marshal who'd taken Owen before. He had news. Thaddeus Kincaid and his men were arrested 2 days ago. Tried to rob a stage outside Fort Smith. 3 of them are dead. Kincaid and the others are in jail awaiting trial. They'll hang for murder. Samuel Garrett's murder, among others. Owen felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "It's over. It's over," the marshal confirmed. He looked at Charlotte. "You all right, ma'am? Heard you had a rough time of it." "I'm healing. Thanks to Owen and good medicine." The marshal nodded. "Glad to hear it. Oh, and one more thing." Judge looked into the ranch ownership. Turns out Garrett had a will filed in Fort Smith. Left the ranch to his mail-order bride, if she ever showed up. "That would be you, ma'am." Charlotte's eyes widened. "He left it to me?" "Yes, ma'am. Said in his will that any woman brave enough to come all this way deserved to own her own land. Papers are being drawn up. You're a landowner now." When the marshal left, Charlotte turned to Owen. "The ranch is mine." "Looks like it." Owen smiled. "What are you going to do with it?" "Build a life. With you. If you'll stay and help me run it." "I already told you I'm staying. Question is, will you marry me? Properly this time. Not because you need rescue or I need redemption, but because we love each other and want to build something together." Charlotte kissed him. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They married 3 weeks later in Red Fork. The whole community came. Charlotte wore a simple blue dress that the town seamstress had made. Owen wore his best clothes, which weren't much, but Charlotte thought he looked more handsome than any man she'd ever seen. The traveling preacher spoke about love and partnership, and the courage it takes to build a life on the frontier. About second chances and new beginnings. When Owen kissed her at the end of the ceremony, Charlotte felt like her heart might burst with happiness. This was real. This was hers. This man, this life, this home. They held a celebration at the ranch that evening. Music and dancing and food brought by neighbors. Charlotte danced with Owen under the stars, his arms strong around her, his eyes full of love. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "Believe it." Owen pulled her closer. "You're stuck with me now, Doc. For better or worse." "Definitely for better." Charlotte rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I love you, Owen Reid." "I love you too, Charlotte Reid." The name sent warmth through her entire body. She was Charlotte Reid now. Doctor and rancher. Wife and partner. The celebration went late into the night. When the last guests finally left, Owen and Charlotte stood on their porch watching the stars. "What are you thinking?" Owen asked. "That I came here expecting one life and found something completely different. Something better." Charlotte turned to look at him. "I was supposed to marry a stranger and build a practical partnership. Instead, I fell in love with you. Real love. The kind I'd stopped believing existed." Owen cupped her face gently. "I spent years running from anything that felt like home. Convinced myself I didn't deserve happiness. Then you arrived in that wagon looking lost and determined at the same time. And everything changed. We saved each other," Charlotte said softly. "We did." Owen kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "And now we get to build the life we both deserve. Together." They went inside their home. Their home now, legally and truly. Charlotte looked around the simple main room with its fireplace and handmade furniture. This was where they'd build their life. Where she'd practice medicine and he'd work the ranch. where they'd face challenges together and celebrate victories together. I'm going to make this place the best medical practice in Oklahoma Territory, Charlotte declared. I know you will. Owen pulled her close. And I'm going to make this ranch thrive. We're going to prove that two people who were running from their pasts can build something that lasts. Charlotte wrapped her arms around his neck. We already have. This. Us. This is what lasts. He carried her to their bedroom, their marriage bed, where they'd wake up together every morning for the rest of their lives, where they'd find comfort and passion and the deep intimacy that came from truly knowing someone. That night, they loved each other with the tenderness and hunger of two people who'd almost lost everything, but had fought their way back to happiness. When Charlotte fell asleep in Owen's arms, she felt completely safe, completely loved, completely home. Morning came soft and golden. Charlotte woke to find Owen already awake, watching her sleep. Good morning, Mrs. Reid, he said with a smile that made her heart skip. Good morning, Mr. Reid, she stretched lazily. What's on the schedule for today? Well, I thought we'd check the fences, feed the animals, maybe ride into Red Fork if you've got patients to see. He paused. Or we could stay in bed a while longer and forget about chores. Charlotte laughed. Tempting. But people are counting on us. They are. Owen kissed her softly. But first, coffee. I'll make it while you get dressed. They moved through their morning routine with easy companionship. Charlotte dressed in her practical work clothes. Owen made coffee and started breakfast. They ate together at the table, discussing plans for the ranch and the medical practice. A knock came at the door mid-morning. A young man from a homestead 10 miles north. His mother had fallen and might have broken her hip. I'll get my bag, Charlotte said immediately. I'll saddle the horses, Owen replied. They rode out together, as they would hundreds of times in the years to come. Partners in every sense, working side by side to build their life and help their community. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Charlotte treated patients while Owen managed the ranch. In the evenings, they worked together on repairs and improvements. They talked about everything and nothing. They laughed more than either of them had in years. Spring arrived with warming temperatures and green shoots pushing through the soil. Charlotte planted a garden behind the house. Owen repaired fences and built a chicken coop extension. Together they painted the ranch house and hung new curtains Charlotte had sewn. One evening in late April, they sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Charlotte leaned against Owen's chest, his arms wrapped around her waist. Are you happy? Owen asked softly. Happier than I ever imagined possible. Charlotte turned to look at him. You? More than I deserve. He kissed her temple. But I'm going to spend every day trying to deserve it. Trying to deserve you. You already do. Charlotte laced her fingers with his. You chose to stay, to face your fears, to build this life with me. That's everything. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower. The prairie stretched endlessly before them, wild and beautiful and full of possibility. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. The horses nickered softly in their new barn. Inside their home, a fire crackled in the hearth, waiting to warm them when they went inside. This was their life now. Hard work and simple pleasures. Community and purpose. partnership, and love. Everything they'd both been searching for without knowing it. Owen pulled Charlotte closer. "I love you, Charlotte Reid. Thank you for being stubborn enough to stay that first day, for seeing something in me worth saving. I love you too." Charlotte's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you for giving me a home, for letting me be exactly who I am, for choosing us." As darkness fell, they went inside together, their home, their ranch. Their future stretched ahead, full of promise and hard-won happiness. They had found each other against impossible odds. Two people running from their pasts had collided and built something neither could have imagined. A partnership, a love, a home. And as they settled into their first true night as husband and wife in the home they'd fought to keep, they knew with absolute certainty that they'd spend the rest of their lives loving each other exactly this much. Forever started now.